Welcome to episode 674 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and we can't really call this episode 674, whatever. This episode is PenyaPalooza. I want to thank, and I say sincerely thank, all of the Penya representatives that joined me on the show on Big Up earlier in the week. And I do have to apologize, too. There were some miscommunications as to how to get on the feed. There were some who wound up being no shows and Penyes that I thought had better understanding of what was happening and not necessarily, but that's okay because I feel like this was going to be the first of, I hope, many PenyaPalooza events where we get together and talk. This was even just North America, and I want to extend this to the world and have these different shows at different times as well. So this is all about Penyas today. We're talking about Barcelona supporters because there are more and new faces coming into the Barcelona world, not just the Barcelona podcast community, but the Barcelona world each and every day as this team continues to win. Now knowing that Barcelona is going to be in the Copa del Rey final in a few weeks, you know, it's the quarterfinal of the Champions League against Borussia Dortmund coming up, and the Liga is still very much in play because Barcelona is atop the table on 3 points as I'm recording this. So still, there is plenty of work to do to get those trophies, but there are a lot of new fans jumping on board right now. It could not be a better time to be a Barcelona fan. The transition between Penyas, if you're just listening, can be a little bit jarring, but don't worry, I did put the full rundown in the show notes, so you can check that out, and nobody's going to be left behind in terms of knowing what's coming next. Speaking of coming next, before we jump into the Penyas and hear from them, I thought it would be important to also break down a little bit of the Penya history, a little bit of the Barcelona supporter history, and let's start with the definition of what's a socio. Now, socios, what are socios? Socios are actual members of the club. They're ones that pay to be a part of the club, and socios and socies, that was originally created as a membership to buy into the club, to financially support the club. That has gone back to almost the club's founding. They say that all the members that founded the club were its official socies. Socies became a term that was more often used in the 1930s, but when we say socies, we're talking about the actual members of the club that get a vote at the assemblies. And in the, we'll say, pre-pandemic era, there were more restrictions. Now you filled an application, and it used to be you had to make a certain number of voyages over to Barcelona. You had to actually check in locally, and that did kind of price a lot of people out because even with these season tickets, let's say you live across the world and you apply to season tickets, the club just didn't want to have to deal with people not showing up and empty seats and all those different things. So to make sure that they give season ticket holders better options, and also a lot of times because the bigger Camp Nou means they're going to be able to offer more season tickets, so that will likely be the idea. And that, again, more seats allows more revenue, of course, but it also allows more season ticket holders who've been on wait lists. When I say generations, a lot of season tickets at the Camp Nou are generational. Like grandfather was a socio, and therefore I have access to a seat, not me as an access, but you know, somebody or family has access to a seat because the grandfather was a socio or a socio. And again, those two terms are kind of interchangeable depending on what language we're speaking in. And so that's what a socio is, which is different than a Penyista or a Penya member or somebody related to one of the Penya groups that has popped up. Because going through a short history of the club here, so the Penya Solera is technically credited as the first official supporter group at FC Barcelona. The short history of the club, as the club tells it, because there's two different versions as well, the short history is that the concept of a Penya was first mentioned around the club in 1919 when a group of supporters requested the use of the Barcelona facilities for a dance. And then, yeah, anything can happen. It doesn't matter how you meet. Supporter groups can work out in any way. And then in 1944, it was this group, the Penya Solera, became the first official supporters group for FC Barcelona. They are recognized. And then outside of that, other groups around Catalonia then became recognized as official Penyas. 1974, and this is going to be a trend here, 1974, Johan Cruyff shows up. So the first real, you could argue that there have been others, of course, but the first real international star. Yes, I know Juan Gamper, the founder of the club, was from Switzerland, but he, very much like Paulino Alcantara, some of the one of the first stars, they were more adopted Catalans in the Catalan world, but Johan Cruyff was the first real international star, if you want to call him that, at FC Barcelona. I mean, I guess outside of Kubala, but again, even at the time, Kubala and the other Hungarians that he would brought in Sosic and Zibor, they came in, the Hungarians, but again, they were coming in as refugees, not necessarily like to Catalonia to play football as opposed to Johan Cruyff being a big superstar talent makes the move. And that kind of brought a big, more international flair to supporting FC Barcelona. So Cruyff comes, and now you have more supporter groups popping up globally. And then that only continues as this thing called the internet kind of explodes. So they do say that when Johan Cruyff was a player, sure, but then when Johan Cruyff took over and we started to get better international TV, broadband, all those different things, technology and supporter groups, what brings us all together, it kind of plays out in that story that along comes the dream team and all that success. And with success, as all of our Penyas will mention, that success breeds more fans, and that's a great thing. So here come more fans with all those La Liga trophies, 4 in a row, and then the club's first European Cup. That was also helpful. That doubled the official Penyas at that point when Cruyff was in charge in the early 90s, for 590 when he took over to over 1,000 at the time. The next explosion of support in terms of Penyas, internationally at least, came with Pep Guardiola and Lionel Messi. So again, more success means more Penyas. And at that point, now the unofficial, official Penyas, they say that the official supporter groups, well, that's at 1,250. And as many supporter groups in the world that are unofficial, there are different Penyas that aren't official, recognized by the club in that 1,250 official supporter groups. But there are close to 1,700 or 1,800 unofficial supporter groups for FC Barcelona meeting around the world at this point, with more than 164,000 supporters around the world. Yeah, 164,000 affiliated even to Penyas, not just FC Barcelona fans. That could be more than 1, 2, 3 million. So if you could get all of those listeners, by the way, to listen to the podcast or subscribe on the YouTube channel, that would be a great help. Or join me on Big Up for the watch alongs. That would be awesome. If we could get every Barcelona supporter group or every Barcelona fan that is not necessarily at a Penya on a certain day, that would be terrific. So that is the club's confirmation as to the official history. Now, there's also an unofficial history that has been put forth, kind of hearsay and other stories, and that involves a kiosk. Now, for those who've been to Barcelona, there is a main hub of the Rambla, which is basically the big shopping center, if you want to call it that. It's a major road that goes down Barcelona. Now, Barcelona, they call it the diagonals. There are a ton of different diagonals throughout if you've ever seen a grid of the city, and it's also been on jerseys as well. But Rambla is just huge commerce place. So there was a kiosk there, and you could see those little, like a kiosk, like a little box store, if that's what you want to call it. And so there are, the name to learn here is at the time, young entrepreneur in Esteve Sala. And Esteve Sala is not famous for being a gentleman that potentially kickstarted the Penya movement, but more importantly, the president for FC Barcelona right as they were about to enter a very tumultuous time. So 1934-35, again, for those who know your history, you know about Josep Sunyol wound up being the president that was assassinated right at the onset of the Spanish Civil War. So Esteve Sala, he was the one that was club president who came after, again, when it was Gamper, 1925. The dictatorship at the time was already pushing back against FC Barcelona and Catalan pride and all those different things, which again kind of fortifies. These Penyas also fortified the Catalan identity at the time of the club. So Esteve Sala at the time, so he ran this kiosk that originally would sell drinks, but then it wound up kind of growing into also supporting this football club that was nearby on the Camp de la Industria. And there was a telephone that was close by that people would use. Again, there's a telephone over near, this is when telephones were not as readily available for everyone and people did not have them in their homes. So between the kiosk and the stadium over on Industria Street or Camp de la Industria, the telephone was here. So kind of literally by word of mouth and a game of telephone, that there was the game, there was this telephone that people were using, and there was this kiosk that used to sell soft drinks. And Salah, being the entrepreneur that he was, kind of created this movement, if you want to call it. And he also was a local businessman of hotels, and again, winding up being the president as well. And that kind of sparked this, we'll say, activism for FC Barcelona and supporters. So the tradition of FC Barcelona on La Rambla and the city commerce and kind of having this buzz and community being built there. That's kind of how the unofficial story goes of the Penya movement beginning all the way, again, 120 some years ago. So Esteve Sala, that is the name to know. That is the history of Penyas. So that's kind of the history, what you need to know getting into Penyas. But most of the Penyas I'm going to talk to today are North American Penyas, in particular here in the United States of America. So yes, Penyas are all around the world. And this is not the first time that this show will happen. It will happen again in the future. But for now, this is really just a crash course on North American Penyas where you can find your local one. And I hope using the links down in the description if you're watching on YouTube or in the show notes if you're listening to this. There's a ton of resources you could find if you're a supporter who wants to watch FC Barcelona with other people, with other like-minded Culers. And Culé, by the way, if anyone who doesn't know that story, so Culs in Catalan does actually just mean, your backside or your bum. And back at the Camp de l'Industria, again, a shout out to that. Before Les Court, even, so before there was an official stadium that FC Barcelona could call home, you could see just the backsides of people sitting on the bleachers, the fans watching the game. So that is how the term culé. A culé is just a general supporter, a Peñista or a Peña, that is a supporter group. And a Peñista would be someone who's a member of one of the Peñas. And then a Socio is a member of the club that can pay their dues, can vote for the club, can vote for the president, all those different things. So those are the three different versions of an FC Barcelona supporter. But if you're watching this, then yes, you're likely an FC Barcelona supporter. And I appreciate everyone diving in. So let's get into those Peñas.
Nice to meet everybody. I'm Minor. I'm the vice president of the LA Peña. I've been a member of our Peña for close to a decade now. I've also known Dan just around the same amount of time, I think. And thank you for having me back on your show. Our Peña was officially formed in 2016. We've been gathering people ever since. Jose and I think, have been around in our Peña almost the same amount of time. To be honest with you, one specific memory, I think we've had a lot in the last few years, but one of my favorite, most recent memories was this last victory with Atletico de Madrid that we had. The most awesome comeback ever. Jose was there. We had a full house. We were hosting the event with La Liga. And, I mean, it was a rough first half. We were down. And I don't know what happened. Suddenly we started to score. And just from my own experience, once we got to 3-2, I started to cry and we're banging the drums. And I mean, I'm like bawling at this moment. The energy in the room just went super crazy. It was wild. Everybody was kind of tossing their drinks up in the air. That is probably right now of the most recent history. That is my favorite memory. I think we were super tense that day. And honestly, we got the win at the end. And these are the types of victories that brings me a lot of joy to not only be the party that's hosting the event, but also to share this kind of like unity that we get from seeing our team win. Right now, that is my favorite memory of the season thus far. And we're hoping to obviously add more to the by the end of the season.
Well, Minoria, let me ask you and Jose, I want to ask both of you. Well, LA is obviously, when we're talking about the Penyas in North America, it is one of the bigger ones. The LA is a huge area. There's a huge, obviously, not only Spanish speaking population, but there's a huge amount of Barca fans coming from LA. I mean, I can tell you just based on my own metrics behind the scenes, like LA, they're the passion for FC Barcelona is ravenous in Los Angeles. So have you found that there are certain, not even difficulties, but challenges in, again, I also want you to remind everyone where you meet and kind of almost how to get there. And do you have any challenges in trying to, kind of centralize everybody? I know LA and traffic, and there's so many people who care about Barcelona, but kind of, this is why I'm doing this, right? To get the word out with all the thousands of people in LA who care about Barcelona, kind of finding a centralized place and getting everybody kind of on the same page, even if they can't make it out to the actual games.
Yeah, we've had some difficulty within the last decade. We have bounced around several locations, and there's a misconception that it's the Peña that moves around. It's really not us. The difficulty that we have is a lot of local businesses, they kind of start booming at the beginning, and as years go by, their businesses are not doing so well. We've gone through COVID. We've had many changes since COVID. Right now, we currently meet at the Greyhound Bar and Grill in Highland Park. Mm-hmm. We started this season and last season at their Glendo location. That location is no longer open, so they're now just down to their one bar in Highland Park. This is where we meet. We have shared a space when schedules conflict. This bar is a sports bar, so they have other groups that they host as well. And we had a bit of a difficulty at the beginning with the NFL team, the Eagles. They have a pretty big following here in LA as well, so we do share a venue with them. And to be kind of fair, sometimes we have to look for a substitute location. We've done that at 33 Taps in downtown LA. So they've been able to open their doors for these 2-3 games that we've hosted there, while our home bar has another event. But the Greyhound is our home. We will be there for sure the remainder of the season, and we're hoping to be back with them next season. The relationship we have with 33 Taps is a strong one, so they like to have our business as well. So it's always nice to have a second option. I don't know if other Penyas find themselves dealing with this, but that's something that has been happening to our Penya, out of our control. But I think people like the idea of hosting these large sport events. And one of the perimeters that we kind of work with is we try to find venues that are willing to open at 5:45, at 7 a.m. We obviously don't play later than 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So
Right.
that's pretty easy to do, but it's really difficult when we want to have a 6:45, a 5:45 a.m. We have hosted a 4:30 a.m. El Clasico event. That was actually my first event with the Penya that early. We want to keep a family environment, so sports bars and bringing children in can also be a little bit difficult.
Yep.
We have been fortunate to find a partner who's willing to do that, who understands that we bring our family. I have a 5-year-old daughter. Jose's got a child that is, I think, a year and a half or so, right? And his older child who's a teenager as well. So our members like to bring their family, and it is a family environment. And that's kind of where we gain a lot of success, is letting people know, hey, you can bring your children. If you're going to go watch them at the stadium, you can also come here and watch the game with us at our bar. Last few seasons haven't been so successful for the team, and we've seen kind of a dip in turnout when the team isn't as successful as it is right now. This season, whatever Hansik Flick is doing with this team is literally making our Penya stronger, because we're starting to not only see the faces that we've lost over the years, but there's like a huge turnout of new faces this season. Especially now that we're in first place, we're getting a bunch of new people that are coming eager to participate, to want to learn the chants, asking to sign up. We had open enrollment at the first half of the season. We had a really successful run at the Clásico. I think we got close to like 150 people that signed up for membership that day. So that was our most successful membership run that we did. So I contribute, I think, the team's success to our personal growth as a Penya. I don't know if the fellow Penyes will kind of share the same experience, but when we win, that's when people start showing up. It could be a 7:45 a.m. game, and people are showing up in large groups. Obviously, we bring, a live atmosphere. We chant, we drum. We'd like to include everybody. I constantly go around the bar and shake hands and introduce people. People constantly ask a million questions about the team. People like to share their stories about going to Barcelona and talking to us about their first game at Camp Nou. Jose and some other fellow Peñistas went to Barcelona last season, or it was at the beginning of the season, Jose?
Yeah, it was last season. It was for the Penya trip. So yeah, that was for last season around this time.
So we definitely like to network within our North American Penyas, and we like to host anybody who comes to LA to visit. I personally have gone to 5 or 6 different Penyas around the world, and it's really cool to hang out with people who obviously share the same love for the team. Basically you kind of share experiences and stories. And remember that one game when Messi, We came off the bench, we were losing to Sevilla, and suddenly within 90 seconds, we're tied. And that's kind of one of the best memories to talk about, because this is how awesome FC Barcelona can be.
Well, I do want to go through the other Penyas and their memories. So I do want to thank you, Minor, and Jose for jumping on here first and kind of being the guinea pigs to the introductions. And hopefully, again, as we continue to have conversations, some of the things that you brought up will be things that I think other Penyas are going to be able to answer as well. So, Minor, Jose, thank you so much for coming on stage and, again, being first. And then if you guys just, again, want to hang out and be around, we'll continue to have conversations. Shay is here. Oh, of course. Hey. Of course. Okay, so I personally do know Shay, so great. Awesome. So the Barca fan, okay, people know you, but I think you and I, because we are actually both members of the FC Barcelona Penya, could talk a little bit about the New York City Penya. But yeah, let me give you your introduction first. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Hey guys, I'm Shay. I'm representing NYC Penya, and I'm actually director of marketing. Our Penya was formed in 2001, and next year is going to be our 25 years for NYC Penya. So it's going to be huge, and those who are going to be in the city, please come to our family. What is it called? Family Day. Yeah, Family Day, and celebrate with us. I don't know. You also asked one of the questions about how is it like in Penya, right?
Well, I would say, I can answer about the Family Day first. Is one of the things that makes the New York City Penya special. I know that I'm interviewing you, but yeah, one of the things that makes it special is Shay mentioned Family Day, and so every summer, because I do these watch-alongs and we're spending the time with the Barcelona podcast, of course, during the games, I wind up not being able to get to Smithfield Hall on 25th Street in New York City, which is where the Penya is located in Manhattan. But I do get to go to the Christmas party, which is always a great time, where, of course, we got the gifts with the long, as well as the Family Day that Shay is referencing. And that is a big paella meal where, yes, it is Valencian paella. I got it. But yes, we have paella then. It's usually hosted at Upper 90, but it could be different places as well. So that is the Family Day that he's talking about in the summertime, where we're going to have that big 25th celebration. So yeah, those are those special little things where it's a celebration of things that we know about related to Barcelona, right? Whether it's the Catalan gifts that are given or it is paella, but it's also, again, the 25 year for New York City Penya is special to the New York City Penya because that's our own history, right? And I believe Jordy's been a part of it since the very beginning, correct?
Yeah, he is the president, founding members of NYC Penya for sure. Right. And I don't know how to, describe the vibe. I do post on my page as well as on the FC Barcelona NYC page about the vibe of the place. But what I can do is I can show you guys a small video of when we won 4-0 against Madrid. 0-4. So just check out. I don't know if you guys see
this. So this is, by the way, this is Manhattan. This is actually like a New York City street in just south of Midtown. And for many, many years too, with the New York City Penya, as I talk over the video, there was the Barca mobile is another thing that has always made the New York City Penya has always stood out. It had its own Instagram for a while there, but it hasn't posted.
So that's the vibe we have on El Clásicos, or it can be as big as Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid or any Champions League game. The bar Smithfield Hall, like Sir said, is completely packed, and after a point they also start charging people. But we are getting stronger day by day, and like Guzman said, in Hansi Flick's rule and coaching, we can see a lot of a lot of fans coming in to Penya, and we are basically getting stronger year by year, and probably next year will be probably our biggest. So yeah, that's about it. And I just wanted to give you a sense of the vibe that we have and we are only trying to, make it bigger and stronger. So that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, last year and usually what happens with the New York City Pena is the delegations do come for the North American trips. They often do come to the New York City office because that's also, the club has an office in New York City. So when the delegation comes in, obviously it's not Laporta or Pedri or whatever, but you do get some legends. Last year was Belletti, and now we look what he's doing with the U19. So you do usually get someone from the representatives, as well as the Femini president came as well last year. I took a picture and met him. So yeah, it's New York is a big city. It is a big city, and it's one that the club does make efforts to have good relationships with.
I think last year was Patrick Kluivert, who came in, and I did.
You're right. I'm dating myself already.
I did interview him, and that time I was not into the board, but it was so much fun. Jordy told me to the story. I started coming to Penya because I did research on Google. Where can I watch Barcelona games? Mm-hmm. And 2017 is when I moved from Mumbai to NYC. That's when I found it, and I saw all these Barcelona fans. I was overjoyed, and that's when I think in 2018, around that time, I met Jordy. I started my own page, the Barca Fan, last year, and Jordy saw the progression and he saw my content, and that's how I was included in the board. And like I said, we are only going stronger, and we'll only do better. And hopefully we'll bring in more fans and members.
Yeah, again, the New York City Pena is continuing to grow. It's one of the bigger ones. And again, I try not to show too much bias because it is my home Pena here in New York. And I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. So Shay, so I'm going to say goodbye to you for now. But that's as cool. People know, again, Shay and I have been talking, the Barca Fan, the Barcelona podcast, been talking for many, many moons about collaborating, and there is only more to come between the two of us. So we can just tease that, Shay, let people know what's coming. And so thank you. Hey, Luke, how's it going?
Hello, Dan. How are you?
Doing good. Okay, so Luke, right. So you introduce yourself, tell us where your Pena meets, what makes your Pena special, and your favorite moment that you've celebrated with your Pena.
Sounds good. So my name is Luke Dieguez, and I just want to say thanks so much for doing this. This is awesome. Dan, I've been a fan of this podcast for years now. So you were, if anyone knows the Washington, D.C. Traffic, I had plenty of time to catch up on your show. So thanks for all that you do for this community. So I'm Luke Dieguez. I'm from the Peña Barcelonista, Washington, D.C. We call ourselves the District of Colombia. We were founded in 2009. I currently serve as the secretary for the Peña. Been a member of the Peña for years now, from pretty early on. I would say like 2012, something like that. So a couple of years after they were founded. And then I've been on the board since 2020, and that's right around the time of COVID. So got to kind of experience some of the quote unquote fun things that probably a lot of Peñas had to deal with, I'm assuming. Our Peña represents the DMV, and for those that don't know, that's DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And if you know anything about this area, you know how spread out we are. I know that there's an individual from the Baltimore Blaugrana, so I know that they are probably seeing a lot of the people that are kind of more north in Maryland. But our area is kind of spread out, so a lot of people come to our games, which is so much fun. Let's see, we host watch parties for all the men's games. We've had the fact that we're in DC, there was a Catalan delegation, and we have a Catalonian member who is the vice president right now. And so she has a pretty good relationship with them. So we have been able to go and partner with the Catalan delegation and watch the women's Champions League finals the last couple of times. And that's been really an awesome opportunity. We meet at Elephant and Castle. So that is 12th and I. So if anyone's familiar with the area, we are pretty close to the White House. And so we used to meet at the other Elephant and Castle. So there used to be two in this area. And this is kind of what I was referring to earlier. The one that we used to go to that closed down. And I think I said 12th and I earlier. It's actually 12th in Pennsylvania. So where we meet now, it was 19th and I where we used to meet. So that closed down during the pandemic. And we had a really good partnership with the restaurant. and they wanted us to switch locations. One of the things that you'll probably hear about us is that we also meet at the exact same location that the Real Madrid Peña meet at. And so we knew that going into it. And so we did, kind of let our members know, hey, we're kicking around this idea of, because our other location left, because we have such a good relationship and they try to bend over backwards for us. We're going to go to the other Elephant and Castle location, to which I think we rightfully got some responses like, is this a joke? That's where the Real Madrid Peña meets. So it's been an interesting way to experience, the Clásicos, because you have one side of the restaurant that is all Real Madrid fans, and the other side is Barcelona, and we meet right in the middle. But we've had a really good relationship with them and their club as well. It kind of adds to the game day experience. And then outside of that, you guys, most people know they don't usually play on the same days. They usually, La Liga tends to book them on a completely separate day. So outside of the Clásico, very few times do we ever end up in the same location as them. But it is an interesting experience, I will say that. I would say that our Peña is special. We have a great diversity of races and ages, all very passionate. I try to give back to the community through various methods. We have a nonprofit that we support called DC Scores, and then we always try to do some special fundraising around the holidays for DC Child and Family Services Agency. So that's definitely a big part of what makes, I think, a Peña, and so that's what we try to honor as well. We have about over 200 members, give or take, pretty long standing, given that we've been around since 2009. And I would say I know a lot of people are probably going to go to recent games that have been pretty impactful on memory, but I just have to, the recent Clásico win in October when we were at the Bernabeu was pretty amazing, because our Peña was absolutely packed to the gills, and it was just kind of cool to be able to celebrate, and then you hear the other end of the restaurant just completely silent. So it was a lot of fun.
Terrific. Yeah.
Yeah,
Luke, that's awesome. That is terrific. And yeah, you answered this very succinctly. This is great. So if anyone is in the DMV area, only as far as Baltimore, because you mentioned Baltimore, I will be there. They'll be going to be on in a second. So I don't want to take too many away from the Northern Maryland area, but not even Northern Maryland, but yeah, Northeast. But yeah, so Luke, thanks so much for getting on. And yeah, if you're in the DC area, head on over to, the same bar as Real Madrid. But they're people too. They're people too. We've learned that. All right. Thank you so much, Luke.
Absolutely. Thanks.
We're going back up here to the Northeast to two gentlemen that I am familiar with. And Armando, you're coming on as well as Juan. So it's time for a little bit of Garden State, which for those who don't know, Garden State is New Jersey, one of the newer Peñas. So I am going to say, Armando, as you get things going, and Juan, as you're coming in here as well, I think that one of the first questions I'm going to ask you to answer as you introduce yourself as well and tell us where the Peña meets. Again, I've been working with Garden State basically since you became an official Peña. So I think for you, Juan, and Armando, hey Armando, I'd like to ask you guys, because I've kind of been speaking to you and Christian as well. I remember having Christian back on my show in 18 or 19 before you were an official Peña. So I'm kind of going to put it on you two to kind of explain what that process actually looks like, because there are official Peñas, like again, New York's been an official Peña since 2001, but then you also have Peñas who are unofficial. They meet together for a while, and then you become an official Peña recognized by the club. So Armando, Juan, you guys take it away.
Absolutely. You guys can hear me well, right?
Perfect.
Okay, so Dan, thanks for the invitation. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces here, which is always good to catch up with everybody. We started meeting around 2015. 2016, 2017, I met Chris, and we joined forces, and that's how we actually went through the process of becoming an official Peña. Our case is a little bit unique because of the close proximity that we have to New York City. We currently meet in Hoboken. To put it into perspective, it's less than 3 miles. We have the ability to not only move to the city, but there's like a train system that actually runs between New Jersey and the city.
Hypothetically, Armando, as someone who's taken NJ Transit many times, hypothetically there's a train system. But
so, so the funny thing is, I mean, I've started watching a game in our Peña, and then I get on the path and join New York City for the second half. So that's how close we are.
Yep.
I do have to say that the partnership with New York City has been, New York City Peña has been extraordinary. The relationship we have with Jordi, with Adria, with Rob. The good thing is something that you actually mentioned. Whenever the club actually goes to New York, we get invited too. So last summer during the Clásico, we actually met Joan Laporta. We were invited to an event in Brooklyn where we met the mayor of New York City. We didn't know that Barcelona had played over 100 years in Brooklyn, and that was the first time that they played outside of Spain. So fun fact for everybody. So yeah, we joined forces in 2018. The whole thing with the process, like you said, it's a tedious process. We've always, and Chris can attest to that, is finding the right people that actually perform the chores, because it's not a straightforward process. You have to be very proactive of how you approach it. But at the end of the day, there's nothing better than the fulfillment and the celebration of becoming a Peña. We're class of 2018. So class of 2018, San Diego and LA became official that same year. So we have a lot in common with them. Ruben, some of the guys that we met, we actually went to a Clásico when we were going through the process, and we had extraordinary times. And if I might add something else, I mean, the members of my board, Juan, Chris, you can't do it by yourself. This takes a village to actually do this. So I'm very grateful that everybody provides value. Obviously, we're a smaller Peña, but in terms of passion, we're a very passionate one. And you said something about the goals that lately it's been a lot of celebration. For us, that Luke de Jong goal against Sevilla during the pandemic, I think everybody was a little bit down because of what was happening with the pandemic. But the roar that I heard in Mulligan's, I don't think I've heard that one before. So other than the Clásicos, that one was a very memorable moment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, again, in Hoboken and in New York City, if El Clásico is a big enough blowout, you can hear each other. I think like there's just a little bit of call and response. So that's, especially if there's a Champions League final in Barcelona's near future, I think you can hear a call and response in that way.
No, and to your point, I mean, we have a lot of members that live in New Jersey. They're members of both Peñas. They're members of New York City. They're members of ours. Depending on traffic, they stay with us. They go to the city. I do have a practice that I try to sign up with a random Peña, official Peña throughout the year, just to show support. I did it this year with DC. I did it with Vic, if I'm not mistaken, like a couple of years ago. So it's something that it's just part of the compromise of being in the network, helping out, becoming a member, and just keeping those back channels open to avoid disaster, like I always say. So
yeah. Well, I'll add to that point, Amanda. Like the reason, again, I wanted to have this conversation is because there are, again, my metrics, and I know this, that there are enough fans of FC Barcelona in the New York, New Jersey area to fill 3 bars. Like there could be we could have a Garden State Peña, we could have a New York City Peña, and we could have a Westchester Peña, just based on the sheer number of people in the New York area. And so this kind of show, again, is to get the word out that when you're not at home watching me on the watch-alongs, because I know that's what everybody who listens to my podcast is going to be doing in the YouTube channel. When you're not doing that, there are communities and fans to watch the games with, to enjoy these moments with. And I think, again, that's just been so great to watch you guys grow. And whenever Barcelona in particular does their North American trip, just having all these Peñas together descend upon these cities. So for the 3 of you, again, Christian, Armando, and Juan, I'll give you guys, I guess, one last kind of final word here, then again, you mentioned Vic because he's on deck, so it's gonna be time for Vic.
Juan, Chris, whatever you wanna bring up, guys.
I'll defer to Chris. The only thing I have to say is my favorite moment was the first time I participated in a board meeting, because it really gave me, an insight into what it takes. It's real, it seems easy to go and watch a game and get together and have beers with people you like, right? And rooting for the same club. But it's all the behind the scenes machinations. At the end of the day, that's really what's rewarding and what makes being part of the Pena worthwhile. So, but Chris, love to hear from you.
Yeah, no, it's been a unique ride. I think, having the support that we do from, our old school members and some of the new members is what's kept us afloat. As Armando said, we try to stay connected with as many Penyas as possible. We have, unique relationships in New York, and I think we use that as our springboard to be able to connect to the rest of you all. And I think I personally have had relationships individually with some of you different Penyas across the country. So, it's been an interesting ride for all of you, and to see you all grow. I think it's the beautiful thing that, we've all been able to accomplish. So, that said, you're welcome at Mulligan's anytime. We always love new faces. So, come by anytime that you guys want. Thank you.
I mean, I can speak for personal experience. Again, I'm smart enough not to dox myself, but I can tell you that I'm not on the New Jersey side of New York, but that might be changing in the coming months. So there is going to be a much better opportunity to proximity-wise.
That's great to hear, Dan. You're
welcome. We'd love to have you there.
Love
to have you there.
Yep. So that'll be likely happening in the near future. So again, Christian, Armando, Juan, thank you so much. Vic, I don't want to put all of it on you to speak for Dallas and Austin. Texas is a big state. There's many different Penyas there. But yeah, on behalf of the Houston Culers, Vic, you've been a guest on the show, so longtime listeners will know your voice, but I want to give you the opportunity, very much like there's new fans of FC Barcelona now, to give yourself an opportunity to introduce yourself to the new fans and your Penya and all the other questions we're trying to answer.
Hey, pleasure to be here, Dan. I think I was on show number 100, and I'm looking here. You're like show number 600 something now. So
almost
yeah, it's
700. Yikes! Yeah,
that's
I know.
That's a lot of shows, man.
Than I was before. Totally.
So hey, pleasure to be here with everybody. My name is Victor Valenchuk. I'm the president of Pena Blogger in Houston. We go by the Houston Culers as our nickname, and so yeah, we've been around since I moved to Houston back in 2012 and found a bunch of guys in the corner of a bar, and they welcomed me in. And before long, they were like, "Hey, Victor, we need a logo. There were these dedicated guys that just would get together, like 20 of them, week in, week out, every single time. And they wanted scarves, they wanted the logo. They're like, and before you knew it, right before COVID, we were probably at 150 members, and of course, we dropped those we dropped all our Argentine fans and all our Messi fans that went away with Messi.
Yeah.
But and COVID hit, so it was a double whammy. But we've seen same stories that you're hearing from the other Peñas. The numbers are growing exponentially right now. Everyone wants to be a Barca fan, and I think the testament to that is that it's just way more fun to watch the games together, period. And that's my biggest philosophy. This is more fun together than it is sitting at home with your tablet, and so that's the big call I put out, is like, come out, watch the games with us. And so so when I think about my favorite time, it's I'd be copping out if I said it was every always getting together at the bar, but I think about the odd days. If I think about that first El Clasico with Rakuten back in 2017 in December, when that game was at 6 a.m. our time, and just a ridiculously early time. Our guys showed up. We went to House of Pies, I think it was, at 3:30 in the morning, and started having breakfast, and then headed over to the bar at 5 a.m. and we had a full bar, over 100 people at 6 a.m. in the morning. And to me, that just, there's nothing better than, everybody getting together at a crazy hour like that to go watch a game. So that, to me, that's special. Yeah, and again, we've been official since 2017. Our bar is called the Velvet Oak Tavern. I always, you've also heard from some of the other Peñas challenges with, having a bar that isn't prioritizing NFL and baseball and basketball over soccer. So that's always going to be our challenge. And so, that's, some cities find it easier than others. I've been fortunate. I've been able to have like a good 3-year runs without having to change a bar. I'm all about trying to stay consistent and not change the location so people know where to find us. They can just, even if they don't come out for another 6 months, they know where to find us. So that's my goal there. And I think, one of the things that's unique for me, and this is a call I'll put out since I've got the platform here, is that I started a project a few years ago called the USA Penyes Barca Tour. So with the help of all my amazing peers out there, leaders who are on this call, promoting and supporting an opportunity to, not just enjoy it together, but have that one opportunity to actually be there and watch the game. So I've decided, I'm like, hey, why don't we invite the whole country and let's join me to Barcelona and come in this April 20th. We're in our 3rd year. And it's on average a group of 50 Peñistas from across the USA come together for a full Blaugrana experience. We see the men's game, the 1 year of the women's game. Another year we went to an under-19 game. We go to the museum together. We have a great time. So I put it out there to everybody. You can go to my Instagram page, USA Penyas, and check us out. And if you want next year, when the Camp News, fingers crossed, back open in some partial capacity, hopefully you can join us on next year's trip.
Yeah, absolutely. So that, by the way, that will be down wherever this is linked. If you're watching this on YouTube or if you've got the podcast apps in your ear, the link that or the trip that Vic is mentioning, even for the future, that's down below just so you remember it. Even if, again, April 20th is pretty soon. So for next season and beyond, this is a really good thing that you're working on, Vic. So yeah, I want to thank you again. You've been on the show as helping me out as another guest, as like an actual guest talking about FC Barcelona, but we'll have to do that again soon. So yeah, Vic, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Appreciate it, guys.
Jared, you have also, by the way, been on the Barcelona podcast before, chatting it up about actual things happening with the club. But for now, again, we're just focusing on the Penyas. So yeah, I mean, I kind of introduced you already, Jared. But yeah, please introduce yourself and you know the drill at this point.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, Dan. My name is Jared, president of Las Vegas Penya, and we've been unofficial since 2018, official since 2021. And it's like they said, a lot of the challenges finding a bar that will have us. Lucky for us, we're kind of special. One thing that makes it special is we live in Vegas, and a lot of the bars are already 24/7, so that was kind of easy. But like they said, having somebody who would prioritize NFL over, or having prioritize soccer over NFL, it was kind of tough. But we made things happen and keep trucking along and finding bars, and we got lucky. And we now meet at a place called Parkway Tavern, which is on Flamingo and Decatur in Las Vegas. It is 24/7. Oddly enough, it was a Mexican restaurant that we used to meet at back when BN got kicked from DirecTV and had to go to cable. So we found a Mexican restaurant that had cable that had us, but they closed during COVID. And this Parkway bought them and took us back in. And so they give us priority with video, sound. And another cool thing is they're right down the street from Palms Casino, which is the last 2 times they were in Vegas is where the team meets. And so it makes it very convenient for like the board members to come and meet us at the tavern and have drinks and just talk with the board members. It's pretty cool. And then as far as what makes us special besides like being in Vegas, you never know who's going to show up. We are such a transit town. I've seen people come from as far south as Argentina to watch games with us. A lot of people from Barcelona, Germany, Africa, and then locally from all over the country, LA, New York, DC, Miami. So it's just always fun to just meet people from all over the world and just watch soccer, football with them, talk football with them, and just enjoy the game and just, have a great community. And I think that's the one thing that really is the most rewarding thing about this is just that community aspect. And we all have this one thing in common that we can all just combine around and just have a good time, and it's really beautiful, like the game itself.
Yeah, I mean, and Jared, you are underplaying probably the best thing about the watching Barcelona in Las Vegas is the access to some of the best tacos in the world. Now, I know, again, we started this with LA and Minor came on before, but I mean, having been to Vegas before and having eaten the tacos in Vegas, I mean, we could have an argument about, I don't want to separate the Penyas. This is all about togetherness, but I'm a little partial. Some of the tacos I've had in Vegas are some of the best I've ever had in my life. And I think Vegas, to your point, it's focused on New York City, but you're right. Like if anyone's ever been to Vegas, there is really truly like one major road in Las Vegas. And so for better or worse, that means that everything is kind of accessible in that way. And yeah, so if you're in the Vegas area, it's easy to get to, it's convenient. So Jared, thank you for the time. Really appreciate having you on.
Thank you. Like I said, thank you for having me.
So Vicente, you are on not to shame me about tacos, but to talk about the Fresno Penya.
So a little bit about me. I mean, I'm one of the founders of the Penya. We've been in existence since 2017 and official since 2023. Like many of the other Penyas have said, obviously the season we're having so far has given us a lot of exciting, memorable moments. But one or two of the most memorable moments for me that I've had with our Peña so far have to be the two 2017 Clásicos. For us, they were obviously our first two Clásicos as an organized Peña, and that 3-2 goal for Messi was just. I mean, at the time it was, I believe, Beach Hut Deli. That was the small restaurant bar that we were meeting up. It just, it erupted. That goal was something special. In fact, it reminded us about one of the recent games that we've had, I believe, with Atletico Madrid, that comeback. And then obviously the December one for us, it ended up being, it was a 4 a.m. Clásico. Which by the end of 2017, we had moved to our location where we've been pretty much our whole existence now, which is Pine and Palm Brewing. We've been there since 2017. A little bit like on and off. We've tried different locations, but always pretty much circled back around Pine and Palm Brewing. We had a 4 a.m. game there. I mean, the owner of the brewery said, "Hey, I'm not going to open up for you. Here's the keys. You guys do what you guys need to do." Awesome. Have at it. So, we went there. It was a 4 a.m. game. We didn't really expect many people. We were also like fairly new. We had only been, since January of that year. And I mean, I showed up by like 11 p.m., which is when he closed the tap room, kind of started setting up, hanging flags, banners, you name it. And I mean, people just started showing up by midnight. 1 a.m., 2 a.m. By the time kickoff came around 4 a.m., that place was like not another body fit in that place. And then by the time the owner showed up, like at halftime, he said he couldn't find parking. And so it was a real special moment for me. Lalo had joined us by then as well. It was just like that moment that you're like, yo, like this is something special that we're creating here in Fresno. But yeah, I mean, Lalo, he's our Peña president. We've been to Barcelona twice, both him and I. Fortunate enough, without even knowing, we were at the last game at the Camp Nou before COVID shut everything down. It was a 1-0 win versus Real Sociedad. It ended up being Messi's last goal at Barcelona with a full Camp Nou. And then we were also at the last game, before the whole Camp Nou remodel. So a couple of other little special Peña moments that we've had together. But yeah, I mean, we've been to a couple of different Peñas. We've been with LA, down in LA. We've met there with San Diego as well. We did like a California Copa del Rey final joint watch party, and then we also had a couple summer games on the Barca tours that we've met in LA and in Vegas. So yeah, a couple of special moments.
Yeah, we're also joined by Lalo. I'm going to have you follow up with one of the things that I asked the Garden State, and in that Fresno, you went from, we've heard a similar story too, where it's just a few people just watching this game, and then you build it into something, you're meeting regularly, and then you become an official affiliated Penya with FC Barcelona. So just explain a little bit, Lalo, as being president of the Penya, kind of how that process worked for you recently, and not only congratulations, but we see that, Zach kind of brought this up here in the chat here about asking if there's an Orlando one. So I guess, Lalo, I'll give you the big question. What does that look like from, hey, as Vicente kind of said, we have something special here, and there's a kind of that moment that clicks and says, I think we've got something special here, and then you turn that into something that it's officially recognized by FC Barcelona. So what does that, what does the stages of that look like?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We got you, Lalo. Yep.
I don't have a mic, and my kid over here is making a lot of noise.
He's watching Barca highlights. We're just assuming he's watching Pedri highlights. So just a few rounds and we're good.
Well, we were unofficial for almost 8 years. I want to say 7. Then I kind of jumped on the whole process, which it took me almost a year and a half. Just sending the paperwork, and then I wouldn't get a response for at least like 2 months at times. And then it was wrong, so I had to go through the stage. It was nice when it was done and over with, but it was a headache at times. But that was our pride. Like, we had to make it official. I know Fresno is pretty much nobody knows Fresno in California. Everybody knows LA, San Diego, San Francisco, but Fresno is like, oh, where's that at? What was the Central Valley? The agriculture, pretty much, trees, cows. But yeah, it was difficult sometimes. Jared in Vegas, he was a big helpful hand. He lent me a big helpful hand. I asked him 1,000 questions, but he was there for me, and I appreciate that, man.
Well, I think it sounds like one of the new mottos for the Penya at Fresno might be trees, cows, and Culers, because it sounds like there's definitely enough Culers along with the trees and cows to make it work.
Well, I mean, our logo pretty much represents the fields, and that's how my brother designed it. The lines by the tower, that's what he represented in the fields, and then the ball is pretty much the sun. So that's hard. I mean, he came up with that, but I mean, we just wanted to do something special for like you said. There's a lot of Culers out here, but I don't know what it is that people are not willing to come out. They always asking us if we charge, if it's free, and we post it on every post, free, all ages. We're trying to give away. We're trying to have food at times for big events, but it's gotten a lot better. I'm assuming because the team is doing well, but like during COVID, hold on.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, I can add to that too, Vicente.
So I can take. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, because I personally, I'll tell people, I personally don't actually drink alcohol, and so I'm still willing to go to the bar. I'm still willing to go and again have those conversations, because again, I'm not paying for drinks. Like I feel bad asking for a ginger ale or a water at the bar, but I do. Yeah, like, so you can go for free and be a part of that, and I think it's important, Lalo, as you say, to mention that yeah, you don't necessarily have to be spending a lot on drinks, or there's no charge. You could just come, and then you can pay membership dues for Penyas. Like, again, I am a member of the New York City Penya officially, and so you pay your dues to but again, that's to help put on events so that we can give back to giveaways, or it helps pay for food or events, or that's how Penyas, again, as you guys on the board, like that is how it, you give back to it, the community itself, and it allows you to put on events and things. That's where the quote unquote charges are, if anything.
Sorry. I mean, we don't have a membership, but we have our board is pretty much family, friends that are willing to pitch in. So every event we have, it comes out of pocket, and we'll all pitch in, either food.
Yeah. So our Penya doesn't necessarily have like a membership where we put it out to people and say, hey, join us this season. It's this much to become a Peñista to the Fresno Peña. It's just, hey, we're opening up the bar for all the Culers in the area. You guys can come out. It's free. Obviously, if you want to purchase a Peña scarf or any little merch, then but it's just mainly, come out. You can join us for free. If you want a scarf, then we sell that. But just to be a member of the Fresno Peña, we don't charge for that. We just say, hey, this is the link. You can register to become an official Peñista on the Barcelona official website. We provide the link. In fact, we've even Lalo's came up with the idea of doing little sticker packs. We have little sticker packs. I don't know if you guys can see it. Different little merch and incentives just to get people to sign up. We tell them, hey, you become an official Peñista to our Peña. There's no charge, and you get this little merch pack with pins and stickers and things like that. We're always constantly, purchasing, ordering sticker packs, pins, things like that to just give out for free at our watch parties. And we've managed to get a big following this year. Obviously, a lot has to do with the team form. After COVID, we did have a pretty big downfall. And then, the past couple of years also didn't really help. Messi leaving also didn't really help. So we've had the little bit of struggles, but this season we're seeing a lot of the uprise. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster, but luckily this season we've had a couple members that joined us just at the end of last season, and then they've just stuck around and they've been pretty solid members. There's times where neither Lalo or I can be at the bar to hold down the watch parties. One of our newest members that just joined this season has stepped up to the plate to take that responsibility. So I usually hold on to the keys to the bar, and I'll hand them to him, before we leave that particular watch party, because I know the next weekend I won't be able to be there. So, Andres, he's actually from Spain. He moved to Fresno a couple of years ago, and never knew there was a Fresno Peña. A lot of the shout outs on the live streams for the broadcasting on ESPN Plus have helped us get a lot of members as well. So it takes a village for sure. When I started it back in 2017, I didn't know where it was going to go. And then, it takes people with commitment, dedication that a couple of the Peñas earlier on today mentioned. It is just people that are willing to do the behind the scene work. You know what I mean? People can show up and have a beer, watch the games, but it's the people showing up before, it's the people showing up after, it's the people designing the logos, designing the flyers to post up on the social media. So thankfully, we have a pretty solid group, a pretty solid, I guess you can say a board that we all pretty much count on each other and are always willing to pitch in and put a little grain of salt to just make this work.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think Vicente, Lalo, appreciate both of your time because I feel like Fresno's on the map now. Now it's time. We've got some Baltimore Blaugrana in the house here. So again, it is, we got a thumbs up here and a nice little background too. How's it going?
Hey, Dan, it's been a long time. We used to enjoy the games together at New York Peña.
Yes.
And I hope you remember that time back in 2000, it was 2018, right before the pandemic, of course.
Yeah, I had less gray. I told you I had less gray in my hair for sure. It was a little bit ago, but
quite a much of gray since then. So
yeah, but so now talk to us about Baltimore. So now Baltimore, to my understanding, is an unofficial Peña. But can you just then explain now from a Baltimore perspective what it does look like to be a quote unquote unofficial Peña, and not say what the challenges are, but how that's a little bit different from the official Peñas?
Yeah, so let me just first give you a little background. Okay, I think it's important that people know how we got started. I have been a coach. I started my coaching with Football Club Barcelona, Escola system, Escola camps here in Maryland, and we have a board that are made up of coaches as well. So my colleague and our general secretary. I don't know if he's still here with us, but he was also an Escola coach. So we have a foundation in the philosophy and methodology of Football Club Barcelona. That's kind of really important. I want to mention that. My son is also, he was invited to Barcelona as a player in 2018, right there before the pandemic. And then that happened and it kind of ruined his chances. But he's a great footballer in his own right, and he's exhibited a lot of success. And then, of course, moving back down here, I joined the DC Penya. And so I kept supporting Football Club Barcelona, of course. I have since then taken a lot of education courses as a coach with the Barca Innovation Hub. I received my level 1 coaching certification, and I'm currently taking the professional diploma in football coaching, again at Football Club Barcelona Innovation Hub. And so on the backs of all of that, I said, you know what? I think it's time. Baltimore is a tough city, guys. It's not a football town. It's not a soccer. A lot of people like American football here. It's dominated by the Ravens and also the Baltimore Orioles baseball team. So we are definitely, there's a huge nut to crack here, but I think there's a huge opportunity because we've already kind of carved our niche, right? There are a lot of football fans here, but they don't have like their place, especially La Liga. Now we do have some Prem League teams. Arsenal does have a club, they have a supporters club here, and so does Manchester United. And I believe there may be one other that just started, but there is no La Liga team here that has a supporters club, and so we are literally the first La Liga supporters club, and we are the first Football Club Barcelona, supporters club in Baltimore. So we've been in existence for about 6 months, since September of last year. We now have 28 members. And what I would say is very huge, muchas gracias to all of the Penyas throughout the world who have started to follow us and cheering us on. The likes of Penya in Dakar, Senegal, the likes of the Penya in Shanghai, the Confederation of Penyas, all of our buddies here, Houston Culers, Fresno, San Diego, DC, of course, is our main advising Penya. So we are getting a lot of support from them as well. So we want to just take a moment and say muchas gracias a total to all of the Penyas that have been supporting us for these past 6 months. Where are we now? I should probably come to your question. An unofficial Penya is okay, right? It's nothing wrong with just kind of getting everybody together and having fun. It's, some of the experiences are just incredible. Being in New York, being at DC, I know what the previous Penyas are talking about the feeling, the emotion, the passion that we all experience together. It's this incredible feeling. And it's something I think this city needs. And so we want to kind of provide that. So we are a different model in terms of being a Penya. We are partly a supporters club, but we are also very much a football club. And we endeavor to train according to a lot of the methodologies that have been taught to the coaches like Coach Carlos and myself and Coach Rohit. We will be transmitting the methodologies of Football Club Barcelona. And I've been doing that as a coach with another club, and the success is phenomenal. To see the success rate, the learning curve is just phenomenal. We're talking about a methodology that has evolved over decades, and it's a tried and true and very famous, world-renowned methodology. So we stand on the backs of that, and I think that that kind of two arms of our Penya makes us very, very much unique. We have team training, youth development programs that we'll be rolling out soon, and identifying some of the best talent in the region. And then lastly, we're really trying to just crystallize the soccer community here. I think I mentioned that. Baltimore's a tough town. The kids here need some opportunities, some other type of alternatives, something to turn to. We want to try to introduce soccer football as something that's a viable model for them. And I want to mention one last thing about that. We want to actually disrupt pay-to-play. As a coach and a parent, I am livid at this system that is absolutely destroying soccer football in this country. There's so much talent out there that's not being recognized because they simply can't afford to pay. And for example, in Maryland, we don't have an MLS team, so therefore kids can't show their talent to the MLS team. Therefore, they don't get shown at the highest level. But the clubs that do play MLS charge exorbitant amounts of fees, and it's just impossible. Let's talk 22,000 a year, a season to play in MLS next. And so we want to destroy that model, and we have a model. We are establishing ourselves as a 501c3. And we are looking to completely destroy pay-to-play. Yeah, that's kind of where we are with Baltimore Blaugrana. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about the Escola program in the past as well, and there are players that that had affiliations to the Escola programs related to FC Barcelona, including Julian Araujo, who, yes, we know him as a Galaxy player, but he was in a Barcelona uniform, as was. Now, I know he's bounced around, but CF Montreal's player, Caden Clark, I know he didn't wind up being what we thought he was going to be, but there are examples of players currently playing in Major League Soccer and other places as well who came up through the Escola systems. So I would say, I mean, again, for you, as a reference here. So again, if you Baltimore Blaugrana, one of the main reasons for other Penyas to be in contact with you and speaking to you is also just because of the good work you're doing for, again, youth development, youth programs, because in the same way that who are the future players of tomorrow? Yes, it's kids, but also who are the future fans of tomorrow? It's also the kids as well. And right, for sure. So on either side, if you're playing with the ball or even without the ball, fans are coming up too as well. So yeah, awesome job. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, you never actually introduced yourself just as a Baltimore Blaugrana. So please introduce yourself individually.
Yes, Coach Fish.
Of course. Yes, Coach Fish.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm an artist at heart. I was an artist since I was a kid. So, I'm a sculptor and I draw. I do have some pieces that I've drawn for the 125th anniversary of our illustrious club. So I put those on our Instagram page. I will put them again just to bring them up because we're still kind of celebrating. And like I said, I've been coaching for like 18 years. Coaching really hit a rocket ship when I was experiencing the Escola system in Maryland. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful camp. It's changed a lot. Let me just say it like that. Bringing 5 coaches from Barcelona who are official coaches, and then having the other coaches who are local participate and assist those coaches in learning we learn all the methodology, everything. It's very tightly knit soccer camp. It's one of the best ones I've ever seen. I hope there's no Arsenal fans in here because I'm definitely going to. But Arsenal camp comes to Maryland and it's like really bad, guys. There's nothing that compares to what our club can put out in terms of methodology. And I would also say that it's the philosophy, right? So we coach from a acronym called HEART, right? So it's about humility, effort, ambition, respect, and teamwork. And those are the values that we coach by. And it's wonderful to see how that plays out throughout training, throughout performance, during matches and tournaments, and off the pitch. So there's an on and off the pitch effect here. And it's just beautiful to see the growth in humanity among all of the players. So yeah, so that's kind of where I am. I'm arts and I'm athletics.
I think that FC Barcelona and football in general, the reason why I love FC Barcelona is I feel like what they play is art to a point. So I'm not surprised to hear an artist and a sculptor liking FC Barcelona. So Coach Fish, thanks so much for your time and everything that you add to this. Again, so the unofficial idea, throw that away because Penyas are a Penya, is a Penya, and official and unofficial is different just based on affiliations with the club and, again, different discounts on tickets and things. So that's really the major difference we're talking about. But yeah, Coach Fish, thanks so much for your time.
Yes, thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone.
Luis, welcome. Okay, last but not least, certainly. So yeah, I'll give you, you have 10 seconds to let me know why tacos in Texas are obviously better than Vegas or California. Unless, I don't know, maybe you agree with me.
You know what, Dan? I've been on this line stream for the entirety of the thing. It's been a pleasure, and so I knew I had to give you the 5-second elevator pitch. when I knew I was gonna be the last one. But you know what, Dan? Thank you for having me here. This is absolutely amazing. I'm Luis Soto. I'm the organizer and founder of the Barca Desert Brigade, which is the unofficial Peña in El Paso, Texas. Shout out to the great city of El Paso. Right now, I'm in Houston, actually, for a work trip. So, I'm gonna be giving Vic a visit this week. But yeah, honestly, it's a great. It has been a great experience so far. We have a great community of people, great people that have come out and say, "Hey, we've been waiting for this." El Paso, I mean, Dan, I cannot tell you how humble I was by their response. People were excited from the get-go. I had no idea what I was doing when I started this. I went to a Peña event in Miami during one of my work trips, and I came back home and I was like, I have to make this happen in El Paso because it was such a great moment of bonding with huge Barcelona fans, like the experience you had then of just talking new signings, talking old moments, talking little things about Barcelona history, and it's been amazing. Now, as far as your question about the tacos, El Paso, I mean, I did take issue with the Las Vegas claim, Dan, but I gotta say, just come down to El Paso, man. We do have great tacos, and you know what? Ciudad Juarez, which is the border city right across from the river. I mean, we're basically one big city. So if we take you down to Mexico, you're not gonna be able to say those aren't great tacos, Dan.
Well, Luis, actually, let me ask you in particular because you bring up a really interesting point. And because it's not just, as I actually mentioned about the Miami Pena, that most of their content, even on social media, comes out in Spanish. So El Paso is literally on the border between the U.S. and Mexico. So and Barcelona being a Spanish-speaking or really Catalan-speaking, but yeah, Spanish-speaking club. I guess I'll ask you a big question that I probably could have asked other Penyas as well as this goes on. You certainly have members that might be primarily English speaking. You may have members that may be primarily Spanish speaking. Obviously, I mean, even in New York, I've met members that are primarily, again, Catalan is their, we'll say, native language, right? And they also obviously are very fluent in Spanish, regardless of how long they've been in the US, and English is still maybe a work in progress. So what does it look like? And, El Paso, you may not have the biggest membership, but what does that look like to bring together a group of people about FC Barcelona, regardless of English or Spanish speaking, regardless of what that is? But are there challenges, again, being on not even the Mexico border, because obviously Spanish speakers, obviously many Spanish speakers in America, but you understand my point, where obviously Ciudad Juarez and it's being on the border right there, and just the sheer influence and number of Spanish speakers and what that looks like to have either social media or trying to get the word out in both languages.
Well, so that was a big decision that I had to make early on, was who am I making this for? Now, Dan, being a border town, you'd be surprised. I mean, basically everyone is bilingual in our world, and so the idea of something being in English, excluding some people, or something being in Spanish, excluding others, didn't really come to fruition really in my mind, because I knew that in whichever language we advertised this, or just or branded our community in, we were gonna get a response. And it's been very interesting to see the amount of people who come to our events from the border, from across the border. We've had several members who live in Ciudad Juarez, who live across the border, and take the time to spend an hour and a half on the queue, on the line to cross the border, and then the additional 10-15 minutes to get to our location to be part of this. And so that tells you, I feel like that speaks to how hungry our community was to have a connection with this club, how hungry the city of El Paso, the people in Juarez, were to have a meaningful experience with soccer, with Barcelona. And it's been wonderful to see how little sometimes those lines mean, how little that border situation really means when it comes to sharing a deep passion. So on our standpoint, we've been trying to do most of our stuff in English. We do sprinkle a lot of Spanish in. We have a lot of Spanglish stuff, Dan, because I feel when I first started living actually in El Paso, because I actually grew up in Mexico. That was one of the first things I noticed is like it seems like the official language in El Paso and in the surrounding areas is actually Spanglish.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff like that, and we do a lot of our posts mixing up some Spanish with English, and that's a thing in Miami too. I'm sure you see it a lot in LA and in San Diego. But it more than a challenge, really, Dan. It's been an opening. It's been a door for us to really showcase this club as something that can bridge cultures and can bridge people and can bring people from different backgrounds together. And so it's been really an exciting revelation and an exciting development having this group here in El Paso.
Awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
terrific, Luis. Yeah, and El Paso, again, is only growing. And I appreciate you coming on
Yeah.
and kind of waiting this whole time. Again, I really appreciate your patience as you
Yeah,
kind
no
of,
worries. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And just a real quick, shout out to anyone from El Paso who's watching us. The Barca Desert Brigade is your home. We meet at the Rockstar Burger Bar in Stanton Street in downtown El Paso. If you're from Juarez and you cross the border in the downtown crossing, it's only like 5 minutes drive from there. So come out, share your passion with us. Share those stories about how you love this club with us, because we're here to be your home. We want you to be a part of all our events, and we cannot wait to welcome you.
Awesome, Luis. All right, again, that is Barca Desert Brigade, which is one of the best, I think, Pena names that I have heard. It's very, very unique. So
Thank you.
Awesome,
Thank
Luis.
you. I say we're second behind District of Columbia. I mean, you cannot beat that. That's so good.
Yeah, it is pretty good. It's pretty
That
good.
is so awesome. Yeah.
All right, thanks so much, Luis. Okay, so again, we've run through all of our Penyas. I want to, for those, we will probably do this again, by the way. So for those who did not have a representative today from the North American Penyas that I was able to invite, that is Miami, that is San Francisco, that was Dallas, San Diego, Charlotte, Austin, Toronto, Montreal, Chicago, or again, any Penyas that I possibly missed. We will likely do this again, so there'll be more opportunities, as well as, again, this was English speaking time. So for those watching around the world, again, I know that there are people listening to my show in Nigeria, in India, in San Francisco. So I appreciate everybody who is going to be joining next time, again, because we have so many other Penyas aren't just in North America. Penyas aren't just in Barcelona. The way the Barcelona page actually set up for Penyas is there is Catalan Penyas, which obviously in Catalonia, there's those Penyas per capita or whatever it is. And then there is then next up, you have obviously Spain, which there's also a huge amount. And then you have obviously the rest of the world. I will have no watch along for Al Betis, but there will be a 5 headlines coming out in quite a few hours after the fact. But yes, no watch along this Saturday. But yes, there will be a 5 headlines, as well as a podcast with a Borussia Dortmund specialist to talk all about the tactics, players, and all about that stuff for the quarterfinal midweek next week in the Champions League. And that is a reminder that there is a lot happening in the Barcelona universe because there is a lot of trophies left to be won. So again, it is a great time to be a Barca fan, hopefully a fan of the Barcelona podcast as well. Because as always, until next time, Barca.